Just introduce yourself and why you're running for sheriff.
Well, my name is Rob Snaza. I've been with the Lewis County Sheriff's Office for almost 20 years. Prior to that, I was with the Napavine Police Department for about 4.5. So I've spent almost 25 years here in Lewis County in law enforcement. And over the past several years, I've looked at where I want to go. You always set your goals, what you want to do, and you know, when Sheriff McCroskey hired me as a deputy, it was one of the best highlights of my whole life, and I really emulated him, I respected him, and he brought out what I wanted to see in a sheriff. And from that moment on, I said, I want to be similar to that person. You don't want to be like them, but you want to take all their good stuff, and you want to focus on that and be better. And so over the years, I've worked very hard to continue that professionalism and get to where I want to be. And you know, it was only the right choice. I mean, this is called servant leadership. We're all in servant leadership, and I think that you know, we do these things, it's not for ourselves, it's for our communities. And that's why I'm doing it.
What would you change, if anything, about the sheriff's office if you were elected? Any immediate changes or long-term?
Well, there's some changes that we're going to see, you know, with the current budget the way it is and rising medical costs, of course, in our facilities. We have to look at different ways of being innovative and creative in working with our local government. What we're going to do for medical costs in our jails, medical costs for our employees. So in the next several months and several years, you're going to see some programs that we're going to try to implement. I'm looking at implementing a CSO program, Community Service Officer program. Currently, we pay about $65 an hour for deputies, and that's including a car and everything. And what we need to be doing is, what can we do to let those deputies go out and handle priority calls, and at the same time providing service for Lewis County ordinances, animal ordinances, paper service. So we're looking at innovative and creative ideas to do that with the current budget that we have. Because right now, the way our economic structure is with the county government is, we're not going to see increases. So we have to figure out what we can do without hiring additional officers. I would love to hire additional deputies, but I'm not going to ask the citizens of Lewis County for that when we need to work at other ways of using what resources we have available to us.
Okay. Your opponent has said, among other things, that law enforcement experience doesn't really matter in selecting a sheriff. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a couple views on that. Sometimes it is good to have an outside idea of how things go, but at the same time you're going to need to have a grasp on what law enforcement really is, because it's easy to Monday night quarterback situations. It's easy to sit on the outside and say, I would have done this, this, and this. Until you're in that situation. When you experience the situations, when you experience domestic violence, when you're there, domestic violence, when you're there, child abuse, rape investigations, murder investigations, or simple investigations on traffic stops and how things affect you, you become who you have been in the past. Basically, how you are going to be in the future is how you've been in the past, how you've been respected, your professionalism, how you portray yourself. And I've worked my whole career at professionalism. Now, being in law enforcement, you're not going to make everybody happy. We know that. When you see a police officer, it's not always for the good things. And so I just caution my opponent in saying, quick to criticize, look into the matter, look into the facts before you criticize, because holding the job of sheriff is not an easy task. It's very demanding, and you have to remember, I mean, he's talking about you're the ultimate supreme power of the county. Well, with power comes respect and responsibility. You're not in this on yourself. You better be a partner, and we have to understand partnerships in our county. And we better understand partnerships in our communities, because we have a lot of things going on in our communities, and we really need to be there to help each of our communities out. Law enforcement is a small part, but working with our schools, working with social services, CPS, all these other people, we have to work together, because not one entity is going to solve the problems that we face in Lewis County.
And shift away from him a little bit and talk about marijuana. Just recently, just in today's paper, actually, a story on the state and a possible movement to ban marijuana in vehicles. Interested how you feel about that, and then just the whole idea of enforcing law in this new era of marijuana.
Marijuana is an interesting, intricate into what we're doing, facing with law enforcement. We're facing something new, of course. The voters have approved it, and we have to accept that. So what I would like to see in the state legislature is clear, defined laws about marijuana. Sometimes it's so ambiguous as to how we handle marijuana situations. In some aspects, I think that marijuana should be treated like alcohol, open containers. I don't agree you should be smoking it in a car, in open public. But if there's places designated for that, and the voters approve that, and the commissioners approve it, then we're going to enforce the laws that they've asked us to. Marijuana is very unique because we're dealing, we had a planning commission recently, we're talking about growing marijuana for dispensaries and such like that. And I think the commission that's heading that has taken a very open view on that. And they're doing things the right way, so that if there is by chance that it does become legal to grow marijuana in Lewis County, then they're going to be prepared to handle that. So regarding these laws, I support the laws if they're similar to alcohol related. I think you're going to see an increase in alcohol and drug related accidents, overdoses, arrests, just because of the way it's going right now, until we'll probably see an uptick in it, and then hopefully I'm optimistic to see that it'll level out at some time. But you know, we're going to continue to go ahead with what we have in place right now.
When you say there's going to be an increase in those areas, what would you do as sheriff to combat that? I mean, we're talking more traffic patrols.
Well, we can go traffic patrols, and we'll continue to do the emphasis, but you know what we really need to do is education. You know, we need to be in the schools educating. And one of the programs that I'm going to implement, that we already have, we have an Adopt a School program. And what it seems like we've forgotten about over the years is we forget about our schools, being in the schools. We got away from the DARE program, which I taught for several years, and it did have an impact. And when we stepped away from it, we kind of lost out. We need to get back in the schools, and we need to do education, working with the high school students about educating them on marijuana usage, and education overall about the public as a whole.
Okay. Much has been made of the militarization of police and all the tanks you own. I say that sarcastically, right, but sure. The NRABs and things like that. Where do you fall on that? Is that stuff necessary for your job?
Well, I'll have to take responsibility for it, and I take full responsibility, even though as a supervisor I ran the program, saw it with the chief deputy, getting some of these items. And we talk about the MRAP. I run the SWAT team. As a commander of the SWAT team, we look at those vehicles or tools that assist us in diffusing high-intense situation to the very best with the least amount of force that we have to use. The MRAP was looked at several years ago when they first came out. We had looked at them, and we thought that if we could get one, an armored vehicle, because our current vehicle, which we have, which is called the V-150, it's that tank-looking one, it has got a number of years on it, and it costs money to repair. And we looked at getting an MRAP that can be utilized for multiple functions. And one thing that we found in the flooding of 06, 07, 09 is that we were utilizing these vehicles to do rescue operations. We had deputies that were actually sleeping in these type of vehicles when we were out in PL. These vehicles are more used for rescue operations than they are for SWAT operations. And that's the good part. But we want to have a multi-use vehicle. The MRAPs were at low cost to us, but what we talk about in this demilitarization items, we've also been able to obtain first aid pouches for all our deputies, snowshoes, snow equipment for search and rescue members. We've obtained quads, four-wheelers. These four-wheelers are more used for search and rescue than they've ever been for any tactical operation we ever. In fact, we don't even use them. We use them more for rescue operations because we've had such an increase in search and rescue operations in the high country. So the equipment that we get benefit the deputies that we have. because it doesn't cost the citizens. If you go out and buy a command center that we currently have, we call it Command 2. Command 2 used to be a dental unit, a mobile dental unit that was used at Bangor Naval Base. Why would they have this dental unit on a base when they drive 3 or 5 miles a week? This unit is now available for all rescue operations. Any situation that occurs in the county, we're able to mobilize this unit. That unit, with grant money, costs us about $15,000 to outfit, maybe up to $20,000. Okay, but it can be used for a variety of things. To purchase something like that would almost cost $300,000 to the taxpayers. So when you start looking at what we're spending, we don't want to incur this type of taxpayers. This county is strapped as it is. And if we can get equipment for our deputies at next to nothing, I'm going to get what we can for them. Because that's less money we're asking the taxpayers to pay for.
You talked a little bit about flooding, and I think it's pretty widely accepted that the Sheriff's Office did a great job responding in 2007. Is the department situated to do that again if necessary, and what kind of things would you put into place to make sure they stay ready for a disaster of that size?
Well, currently we are up to date and we are ready for response. As of late as yesterday, we were in our emergency operation room setting up, preparing ourselves. We had multiple people in there that were able to ensure that if there was an event that happened today, we're ready. We prepare ourselves on a regular basis for these type of events. The concerns are coming up November. November's always been notorious for flooding, as well as February, late January. And we have to prepare ourselves for that, and we are prepared for that now and will be in the future. We'll continue to designate people that can mobilize to the east end, because we've had some flooding in the east end as well as in the west end. We have multiple people that train on a regular basis for mobilization to any event that we have.
Okay. How does your leadership style differ from Sheriff Mansfield? Or does it?
Oh, it does. I think in a lot of different ways. You know, I came up through the ranks. I know Sheriff Mansfield has too, but it's when he became sheriff, he'd been out of patrol for about 8 to 10 years. For me, I've come up all the way through patrol. I've worked with the majority of these guys, and I think what you do is you work with these people and they see your leadership skills. And receiving the endorsements from the Operations Guild as well as the Correction Guilds means a lot to me. It's very humbling that these people respect me and entrust me that we're going to continue our leadership. My leadership is different in the aspects that I'm the kind of guy that's out a lot more, out on the road. I'm into partnerships. I know Sheriff Mansfield does partnerships too. I'm into partnerships as much as anybody, and I think that we'll have the unique ability to, you know, with my brother being the sheriff of Thurston County, can have a unique opportunity to work together. Not that we don't now, but work together on different things. We have a lot of things that overlap each other. The dive rescue operations that we've been asked. We've had 6 drownings in Lewis County this last year. On 3 of those occasions, we've requested Thurston County Dive Team to assist us. We have issues regarding drug activity. Thurston County Task Force has been there to help our task force. So we continue those type of partnerships. And when we talk about other partnerships, working with Centralia, Chehalis, and the smaller agencies, for several years I've worked with partnerships with all these agencies. And so you continue to grow in those partnerships. I'm really excited about the opportunities that we're going to have.
You wiped out one of my questions. I was going to ask what the practical benefit would be to being sheriff in a neighboring county where your brother's sheriff. Is there anything else there you want to touch on?
One thing about him being sheriff so far is getting some ideas, working together about where we want to go. There's a lot of ideas that I have that I want to implement, and being able to have that person you can talk to, because coming in as a new sheriff, a lot of times you don't know the sheriff adjoining county because you just came in as a sheriff. You may not know him or her, but knowing my brother and he's given me the opportunity to meet surrounding sheriffs. I've met with all the surrounding sheriffs of Lewis County in partnerships with Mason County, Pacific County, Cowlitz, Grace Harbor County. I mean, the partnerships are already forming there, so that working together, because what we're going to end up doing is there's going to be instances where we need to work together, and these partnerships have already been laid out, so it's going to be easy to build from. I know all the sheriffs. I get along with all of them, and I'm very excited about having the opportunity to work with them in one capacity or the other.
Speaking of partnerships and former administrations, there was a time when there was an issue between the prosecutor and the sheriff. It seems like you signed up to run right with Meyer. Was that a symbol of unity, and do you think you would get along well with his office?
It is a sign of unity, and Mr. Meyer and I have been friends for a long time, and I supported him when he ran, and I got with him. You know, I knew 4 years ago that I wanted to run for sheriff. I made it very clear, and I started laying out the foundation then, and Jonathan and I have been working together. We continue to work together. We're looking at next year, we want to put together a Citizens Academy. I know Centralia has one, but we've gotten away from that. You know, we've gotten away from a lot of things that we need to work together on. And with Mr. Meyer and I, we see things the same way. We have the same insights, our heart's in it. I mean, you got to have your heart in it. You got to have the passion for it. And he has that, and I'm really excited to work with him. We talk regularly about how things are going to be and how we want things to work, working together. I know he's supportive of a regional task force because we see that as a growing issue in our county, and we need to work together. But you know, working with Jonathan is going to be so nice. It's very exciting.
So another kind of current events involved question is just the fact police involved shootings around here. Obviously there's not a ton of them, but there has been an increase. What do you think the cause of that is, and how do we prevent that from happening?
Well, there has been an increase in officer involved shootings, and it's not just in Lewis County, it's nationwide. And I don't know what the root causes of it. I know that in a lot of ways we're dealing with mental health issues. We're having new issues that come up for law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers now are being trained in dealing with mental health individuals, which I think is important. And I'm hoping within the next couple of years that all our officers will have training in mental health, dealing with those individuals. I don't necessarily think that those incarcerated, we got about 40% of inmates in our facility have mental health issues. Is that where they want to be? And one of the things where I want to go with that is we need to establish a mental health court, and we need a veterans court. Those are for individuals who've gone off and fought for our country, and they've come back with some issues. We need to help them get through that. And that's one part that we see as the sheriff's office. And then also addressing mental health issues. Being incarcerated in our facility is not the answer for someone with mental health issues. But getting back to the shootings, I mean, we're seeing that because of mental health issues. We're now, there's studies that are now coming out nationwide and finding out why these shootings occurred and were they necessary shootings. All of our shootings have been justified, but we have to try to understand the other side too. What has created this situation? And I think we continue to study that and work on that, work to improve. And I know the Sheriff's Office is continuing to work and improve in better ways that they can better address the issues that our community faces.
You are right on time so far. We have about a minute left, sure. And just a final question we're asking all of you guys. Sure. What's one thing about you that most people don't know? It can't be something you've campaigned with.
Boy,
or anything like that.
That's interesting. Well, I don't know if many people know that my brother worked for me when I worked for Napa Police Department. My brother got out of the Navy, and when I got hired, he wanted to be in law enforcement. So he goes up to the academy out of Mason County, and he ended up coming to work for us. And my brother and I rode together many times on patrol. And it was kind of fun telling your brother what to do. And now, since he's been sheriff, he's been telling me what to do. But that'll be short-lived, I'm hoping, you know. But it was always fun. I mean, we always had fun with it. You know, it was a really fun time. There was an incident one time where my brother eventually got hired by Winlock Police Department. He had worked for Winlock for a short time before he went to Thurston County. And he had arrested this one individual for a DUI one night. The next day, I stopped him for the same thing, and my brother had arrived to back me up on it. And he had thought that we were trying to go after him, and it was just how ironic that was. But you know, it's been a great ride, and I'm really excited about what the future lays. I'm excited about this community. I'm excited about where we're going to go as a team and as law enforcement as a whole. So,
excellent.
Thank you guys for
Thank
having
you.
me.